people are pulling deposits out, these banks are going to really struggle. I think those days are gone.
Listen, the US just made it official and legal to make America poorer because from now until after the next elections, they can print as much money as they want. The last time they did that, inflation went up 9%. With the BRICS nations working together to create a new reserve currency, the US government just added fuel to the fire. The threat to the US dollar is getting stronger. It's time to protect yourself, your family, and your future. Invest in gold with Noble Gold Investments. Gold is the one asset that is proven to withstand recession, inflation, and just about all economic threats. Noble Gold Investments is here to help you if you want to invest in gold. You will also get a 24-karat, 1/4 ounce gold standard coin for free. Go to noblegoldinvestments.com now. noblegoldinvestments.com, the gold company I trust. Hey, Inspired Tribe, my fellow freedom lovers, John Nolan here. Thank you so much for tuning in to another Inspired Conversation. Today, we're bringing back the CEO and founder of Noble Gold Investments, Collin Plume. One thing, he said when I came on right before we started recording, damn it, he said, I forgot my hat again. I wanted to bring my hat. Collin, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, I did, and I feel like putting my cowboy boots up on the table would be inappropriate, so I'll keep those down here. But yeah, no, thanks for having me on. Yeah, and you'd mentioned it. Yeah, I'm CEO, founder. I started the company in a room that was probably as big as this desk. So yeah, I've done everything in the business and been a part of the whole process, and it's been an absolute blessing.
Collin, these are my favorite entrepreneurs, are the ones who have done every aspect of the business, like not just bringing a huge sum of money in and then cashing it out later, but it's literally, filling the boxes, sending them out, and everything that needs to be done in between. So I have huge respect for that.
Thank you.
Well, as a fellow entrepreneur, I know how important that is too for a business to function properly. We brought you back on, first of all, because we're great partners and have been, because like you, we believe in the vision of precious metals, gold and silver, especially in these times, as a very secure and proven asset and investment, right? So this is off the bat. That's why we're absolutely on board with that. We are in a very, very strange situation economically right now. I kind of told you my intuition off camera was I see all these mixed signals from the economy. If you study the metrics, they seem to go in opposite directions sometimes. Just this morning, the German federal auditor said that the German central bank, as a matter of fact, might need a bailout because they have $650 billion or euros in losses. We see weird trends in the U.S. economy. My personal feeling is, Collin, there's a sort of a calm before the storm moment here. What is your take? Where are we in the U.S. and the global economy right now?
Well, it's interesting that Germany is going through this situation because through the whole history of the EU, they've always been gun shy on bailouts, just in terms of wanting to do it with different countries. Spain and different countries in the EU, they've always been sort of vocal about not wanting to do it. Now they're sort of in a position. So it'll be interesting to see how their European partners feel about potentially having to bail them out. But I think a lot of it, what it comes down to is just bad decisions. I think a lot of countries, a lot of central banks, a lot of banks in general, just talking about banks, with all these banks that have been closing down, I think a lot of them haven't invested wisely in sort of the best decisions. And that's why you're seeing a lot of things shift. So the BRIC nations are pushing very hard. I think they're going to come out with a currency that's backed by gold. They've been alluding to it for weeks and months. And so you're seeing central banks sort of going away from U.S. treasuries, going away from the U.S. dollar, buying physical gold, and now they're, these big nations, these BRIC nations, BRICS plus, are talking about bringing a currency that's backed by gold, and it has a lot to do with what's happened with our dollar, what's happening with our debt here in the U.S., and how outrageous it's been. And we did have that debt issue a few weeks ago, and that debt ceiling. And for people who don't know, I mean, there's a 2-year window now. They're not going to have a discussion about the debt for another 2 years. That's 2 years of more spending. And that's, that didn't send a lot of confidence to the world that we're going to try to manage our debt problem. It just basically, we found a solution that a bunch of these people in Congress felt comfortable with. The president signed off, but it didn't solve any of the issues that we really need, which is to cut back on a lot of our spending. There was no big provisions that allowed for that. One thing it did is it cut back on some of the IRS agents that they were talking about putting into work. So that, I think, is probably a positive thing for most people, because I think the bill that talked about adding 80 or 90,000 IRS agents felt a little bit like a government vigilante coming after people. Because I think most people in this country, if you look at it as a whole, I mean, people that are working for a corporation, you get a W-2. I don't know how any of those people could do anything that they needed to be audited for any reason. I mean, you get the statement from the government. Now you can make the argument that people that are self-employed, maybe there's stuff that people aren't doing. But to add that many agents, and obviously there was talk of adding agents, some of them had guns. It felt like the government was sort of coming after us. So pulling back on some of that, I think, was a good thing. But I agree with you, John. I think that, you have this inflation that's kind of been slow. It's been a little bit slower, yet people are going out and buying items, some of the food items. We talked about cars. There's still some items that seem to be going up at a pace that most people's income can't keep up with.
I'm observing this every day, and it's just the conversations that I'm having. It's there are just, as I said, these weird factors. But there's one thing, you alluded to it. We're seeing a transformation in the financial and in the economic system, right? I mean, people call it the Great Reset, and everything is changing. But there's never been a significant change in an economic or financial system without a crisis. It always happens with a crisis. So the one thing is, when banks go under, usually if they're big enough, they get bailouts. If huge corporations, like we saw in the last crash, get under, they get bailouts. But the average person who's been working hard, filling out the forms, paying their taxes, doing all the right things, they're left stranded. And that's, that's why people like you come out and say, hey, listen, I want to help people secure their earnings and their income and make sure that it's going to be there and then some, even if something bad happens. And gold and silver have really proven over time to be solid investments that you can count on. Do you feel more confident than ever that this is still the case?
Well, the transfer of wealth, I think, is happening in certain places of the world. So I think we're seeing a lot of people move to certain states that don't have income tax. So there's a lot of wealth moving into Texas and Florida and Nevada and New Hampshire, a lot of these places that don't have the state tax. You see those economies starting to flourish. You're seeing the Middle East, which most of those places don't have taxes either, really grow. The UAE actually the report came out that they've increased their gold holdings by 41% over the last 12 months. So you have a lot of these central banks and these places in different parts of the world that are seeing the writing on the wall, that they want to be more business friendly. They're creating environments for entrepreneurs to go. I think we talked about last night, Texas wants to create their own currency that's backed by gold. So are places in the world that see that they want to bring in people, they want investors, they want money, they want entrepreneurs, and then they want to create a sound money system. And I think that's the wave of the future, is that banks are, and it's been like this for a long time, but banks are not seen as a safe place anymore. They're not seen as a place that you can put any significant amount of wealth to keep up. I mean, now they're starting to offer, interest rates that are in the 3.5% or 4% range on some of the accounts. But that's the only reason they're doing that now, is because they need deposits. They're not doing it. I know a lot of people are like, well, because interest rates are higher. That's not why they're doing it. The only reason they're offering a rate that's relatively close to the inflationary numbers is they need deposits, because they're going to go out and lend, and that's how they make money. That's the only reason they're doing it. If interest rates start to go down this year, which I believe that they will, I think they're going to lower interest rates, those deposit amounts are going to go from 3.5 to 2.5, and they're going to go back to the old days when they were paying you 1%. So, but now I think
with inflation, right?
Yeah, you cannot keep up with inflation with those kind of numbers. And then, we have people right now that it looks, they're talking about now it's a bull market for the stock market again, but it's been shaky. I don't agree that we're going to hit a bull market that quickly in the stock market. I think it's going to take some time, because you need, for a bull market to really hit, you need confidence in the stock market. You need low unemployment with good paying jobs. And we've seen this first quarter this year, even though unemployment is relatively low for what they report, a lot of the jobs that were let go were high paying jobs. I mean, we're talking high six figure, all these tech jobs, these are high six figure jobs. So yeah, there are some hospitality jobs that are making close to minimum wage, and some of these other jobs that have stayed pretty steady. But the jobs that people that are older that really contribute to the economy, that really contribute or are buying things and moving things along, their income, they're losing their jobs, they're getting their jobs cut. So the transfer is people are moving to these states, they're moving to these countries that are offering these unbelievable opportunities, lower tax and better job opportunities for people to survive in this economy.
There was one thing that you said is deposits, and I'm not a big holding large deposits in a bank guy, especially not in the last years. But there's one thing that people also don't know is that there was a very silent rule change by the Federal Reserve Bank in 2020, where it said the standard used to be, depending on the size of the institution, they had to hold between 2 and 12% of their deposits as a reserve.
Right.
That went down to 0 in 2020. The Federal Reserve Board changed that to 0%, which there's nowhere else to go for the banks now. They don't have to hold anything. So for them, there's nothing more to do. And if that isn't really properly working, we're kind of seeing the writing on the wall that we're going to hit some sort of, I think, expansion of what we've seen earlier this year. Do you expect more banks to kind of hit that deposit crisis that we've seen earlier this year?
100%. I mean, the big banks receive billions and billions of dollars. I had a connection into Bank of America, and I think they were saying the amount of money they received in like that week after some of those banks went down, the billions of dollars. And you got to think most of that came from medium-sized banks, regional banks that they said they were done and they're going to go to Bank of America or they're going to go to Chase so absolutely these mid-sized banks are going to have a lot of problems. They don't know how to profit, because how does a mid-sized bank in the world of no fees make money? Part of it is they do mortgages, which nobody's doing right now. Part of it is they do car loans, which car loans are expensive right now. The rates are high. People aren't loving car loans right now, and that industry is not really booming. Yeah, people are driving in, they're getting out, they're doing things again, but they're looking at other options. They borrow money, they lend money to businesses. That's how a medium-sized bank makes money. But some of the businesses that they've been lending to haven't been doing too well. It's been a struggle for some of these small business owners. So their typical revenue generators haven't been really strong. And so unless we see the real estate market pick up soon, and I don't think it is going to be soon, I think a lot more regional banks go out of business. And it is sad when you see some of these regional banks go down, because some of these communities, they need these banks. There's people that, they've been going to the bank for 20, 30, 50 years. And so they have that sort of relationship, that unique relationship. There's people that still want to go into the bank. There's people that still want to talk to a banker. And you're not going to get that at the big banks anymore. You don't get that kind of service unless you have buku bucks. They're not going to even talk to you. So it is a service that a lot of people want. But I do think that they're going to have a lot of problems this year. It's going to get worse for a lot of these regional banks. The income streams they're just not apparent for them, because if you really think about what the fees and what they're charging, there's not much there, and so if people are pulling deposits out, these banks are going to really struggle. I talked to a guy that owned a bank, and I even mentioned to him, like, why don't we partner up and maybe we'll sell some gold together? And his head exploded. I mean, literally, it was like, I I asked him to like, go off to another world and fly to the moon. I mean, these guys are sort of backwards thinking. And I said, let's try to do something. This will help you guys have another revenue stream. So they're restricted with obviously regulation, but also just the mindset of some of these banks today. I don't think they're able to keep up with how things. I mean, people are living on their phones. People are keeping money in PayPal. People are keeping money in different accounts nowadays. It's not like it used to be where, you get all that money in your bank account, you pay your bills, you'd save some in there. I think those days are gone.
It's funny you mentioned there was those income streams, because I just read this morning that on average banks are actually currently losing on mortgages, not making money. Where it's literally gone into negative, which is a problem. But there is always a solution, and our intention to our viewers is, okay, we are going through these transformational times. Right. Nobody knows exactly when kind of the rug will be pulled out from underneath us exactly, but we all know it's coming. Gold and silver, as I said, precious metals, especially gold and silver, is what you focus on. And you sent me something earlier, which I thought was very interesting. Is there is a huge rising demand for silver. So it isn't just a security aspect of currently investing in precious metals. There's also a real investment bonus that could come with it, actually making money, not just because people look at precious metals so often just for safety, but we're currently seeing a huge demand in silver, right? Globally.
Yeah, and also the nice thing about silver right now, I love gold and I own a lot of gold and I own a lot of silver too, probably too much. Well, maybe not too much, but the thing about silver that's nice is that because gold has gotten so expensive, I'm friends with a lot of entrepreneurs that own jewelry companies, jewelry manufacturers. They're really moving towards silver right now because it's much more of a metal that people can afford. And so you're seeing a lot of the jewelry demand really moving into the silver market, which has been, and you're even seeing like big companies like Tiffany and a lot of these big ones that are really pushing, they'd always push their gold products, but they're really pushing a lot of their silver necklaces and chains. And so you're seeing this massive market shift, also coupled with Instagram and a lot of these places where people buy jewelry. It's much more feasible for a quick buy at $100 to $500 in a silver or something than a $2,000 silver ring or necklace or whatever it is. And to be honest, anything less in gold, it's probably not worth much of anything anyway. I mean, I know most people don't believe that the gold plated and all that crap that's out there. But you could get some good value in something that's quality for a few $100s in silver, where it's really hard to do that in gold. So you have that pretty dramatic demand that's really flourishing in the silver market. And then you just have all the industrial uses that are coming up, from all the solar panels, the electric vehicles. But don't sleep on platinum. A lot of people don't talk about platinum, but platinum right now, I was in a big meeting with the Platinum World Council, and they were just talking about how difficult it is to mine platinum right now. And they're using platinum in catalytic converters. They also use it in jewelry, but it's a very difficult metal to mine. And they believe platinum's ready for a massive run. And they actually think, and I don't know if this will happen, but they think it's going to pass through and actually overtake palladium and be more valuable, which would be a huge jump from where it is today in terms of value. So we do sell gold, we do sell silver, we do sell palladium, but I think platinum is a metal that people should be looking at. I know people that have been looking at rings have probably considered platinum, but these catalytic converters that the European Union is really pushing, platinum is going to be a major component for that.
That's an interesting one. And Collin, who is Noble Gold Investment for? I mean, who does it speak to, and what is your average customer base like? Why do they come to you?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it used to be when I started in the industry. I've been in the industry for about 14 years. Noble Gold's been a little over 7 years. But when I started in the business, I would say it was more fringe, niche sort of buyer of precious metals. I don't think people had the knowledge that a lot of people, it's gone away more now, but even 5 to 8 years ago, people say, you can own gold. I thought you couldn't own gold, because there was a time in this country you weren't supposed to have your own gold. So I think that the knowledge base from when I started and then who the buyers were have really dramatically shifted. I don't think there's anybody now that wouldn't say, and we've had, I don't know if I share this with you, like a few weeks ago, I had a financial advisor who, one of our clients called, went to his financial advisors, hey, I'm thinking about doing gold, didn't mention us, just said, hey, who'd you go? And this financial advisor didn't know us from anyone and actually said, I read the reviews and they recommended Noble Gold. So that was interesting from today to, from 10 years ago. 10 years ago, your financial advisor wouldn't do that. They wouldn't have any part of it. But now they're sort of realizing that there is a place in people's portfolio to have some precious metals separate from other things. And I think that financial advisors are starting to realize that if you slam your specific product down a client's throat and you reject everything else that's out there, that client's going to leave you eventually over time. And many of them have. So I think having some diversification, which is what I really have always preached and talk about, is having some precious metals in your portfolio. A lot of people have a lot of net worth in their house, having some of the stocks, and then, a few other things that generate some income. That's a nice recipe, because if over the last 2 years you needed money and you had all your money in the stock market, you were upset because you were selling your stocks at a point that were much lower than it was in the past. But if you had that gold or you had that silver and you needed that money right now, you were feeling great about it because your gold and silver are up and performing very well. So having the different assets to liquidate in time of need is really why having gold and silver is really important for anybody's portfolio.
And it's interesting that you mentioned that it has changed over the years. I now see, my son is 20 and his friends, they talk about gold and they talk about silver, and they kind of start buying a little bit here and there, which is so, I want to say so maybe anti the current all digital trend, but they're like, no, I mean, it feels good to have something solid, something physical, right? And you hold at Noble Gold, you hold all the gold physically. This is not paper gold. You hold
no. And in your IRA, it's held in a segregated depository. So we don't hold it. It's held by a third party. So we just help you buy the metal and then we ship it to the third party. Now I do go and do a blind audit of a few hundred accounts every year of our different facilities. We have one in Texas and Delaware and Canada. So I do go and check out, and I don't do all the accounts obviously, but I do a good amount and just count the ounces of gold and silver. But I think it's funny you said that, because our demographics, we look pretty closely at our ages. And over the last 2 to 3 years, the age of our client has dropped by about 5 years. It's gotten about 5 years younger, which is a pretty dramatic shift in age. So I think you're right. People now that so much of their world is on the phone or in the ether or wherever it is, they are sort of going to old school and having, something that's gold, something that's tangible feels good and actually feels more real than owning something in the metaverse or whatever people do, in those spheres. So I think you're right. I think that people are kind of going back to the old school, and I'm seeing much younger people ask me about precious metals. And, I've had job applicants come to me that are in their early 20s that I would never get an application from anyone in that age before, where they're like, we don't even have any job postings. They're just sending us resumes because they want to get into this business. So I think it is interesting. I think it's a shift in what's happened and what they're seeing. I think a lot of them maybe got into crypto or kind of saw that, maybe lost some money there and go, I worked hard at this job and now I lost it. And maybe I didn't have as much money to mess around with that I thought I did. And maybe I should just get something real that I can understand.
So for people who want to invest, people who want to change their retirement plans, I mean, there's different options that you do, but
Sure.
How can people get in touch with you, get an idea, get some counseling on the whole process? And what is sort of the minimum entry level that you say would be needed in terms of dollar amount?
Yeah, on a cash purchase, just a direct at home, our minimum investment is 5,000. We offer a lot of service, so you get a live person. We walk you through the process. When the tracking number comes, we call you. I mean, there's a handheld environment to what we're doing in concierge service. So for 5,000 for the cash is what we would be as our minimum. On the IRA, we recommend 15,000 in an IRA because it's real gold. You have to store it in a depository. It's going to cost you around $200 a year to keep it stored, but it's segregated and insured. So it's not like a safety deposit box, which doesn't have any of that stuff. So you want to make it make sense. So that's why typically our minimum is about 15,000 in terms of an IRA, just because you do have those fees to store the metals there in a segregated account. But yeah, any questions about the product and we do all the paperwork. So if you have an old 401k or an IRA, we have a full team that will handhold you through the whole process. We'll help you fill out the paperwork. We do all that for you and make it really smooth and easy, because we know paperwork's tough and custodians are trying to make it difficult. So we have a team that'll make that process really easy.
So all you really got to do, if that's the route you want to go, and as we said, we only recommend what we do ourselves and what we have experience in. So this is an easy call for us. Just follow the link that's in the description, noblegoldinvestment.com, and reach out to Collin and his team, and let them walk you through it, through this process. We think that it's a wise thing to do, and then you got to listen to your intuition and if you're going to pull the trigger or not. But it's definitely something for us, for my family, something that gives us peace of mind in a financial sense, because when I look at today, when I see somebody with a stack of money, it just doesn't feel as appealing anymore as it used to. I'd rather look at that gold bar or those coins. They feel much more appealing to me today than that stack of bills that keeps losing value every time I
Absolutely.
check.
And it's a lot easier to spend cash, right? I mean, that's the other thing too, is, so much of it with me, with the gold and silver that I bought over the last 15 years, I have some that I inherited too, but you just forget about it, right? You just sock it away. And, I got a little bit, I have 3 kids, so I have their pile of gold and silver, and they've seen it. And I've gone through the coins that they have, and it's really cool and amazing. And I have some bullion, and I got a few older, St. Gaudens and things, just because them being 4 and 6 years old, just talking about like, oh, this coin is 120 years old, and this one's, so I have a few of those that kind of sprinkled in, which I think when they inherit those down the road, that'll be really fun. So yeah, it's just, getting something tangible, getting something you understand is great. And I think for anybody that has kids, getting them to understand what real money is and that these things will be valuable forever. Gold's been around for 5,000 years. It's been used in currency forever. It's in the Bible. So nothing's going to change, whereas everything in the digital world is constantly changing, but these things stay constant. And I think that's important to keep in mind for investments and for money, is to focus on things that are going to stay constant and to grow over time. But yeah, thanks, John. I appreciate you having me on, and as always, and looking forward to jumping on the next one.
Fantastic, Collin. It's always great to have you. Collin Plume of Noble Gold Investments. Go check it out. Links in the description, and get started on that journey today. Just check it out and learn more about it. I think this is the right time. Collin, thanks again. And Inspire Tribe, thank you so much for tuning in. We love you. We appreciate you, and we'll be back with you again very, very soon.